The faces of Atlanta activism are changing, with new, younger, energetic organizers emerging, but seasoned activists who have been in the streets since the 60s are still standing strong against war.
So what's going on with this Iran situation?
Well, I guess I want to say I think it's very dangerous. You know, very obviously the United States has carried out decades-long efforts to undermine and to seize, really have total control of Iran's oil. So people need to know that going back to the 50s, that the U.S. and the CIA, in conjunction with British forces that had been the colonizer of Iran, helped overthrow a prime minister who was going to nationalize Iran's oil. Up until that time, Britain was part of an oil company, and they actually took almost between 85 and 100% of the profit from Iran's oil for decades. So when this prime minister, his name was Mossadegh, was elected into office on the promise that the oil revenues would be used for the Iranian people, the CIA schemed out of the embassy in Tehran and overthrew him, and then brought in the Shah. And the Shah was in power for 20 plus years and had a notoriously brutal police agency called Savak that killed, assassinated trade unionists and other progressive students, anybody who opposed the Shah. And the U.S. backed the Shah 100%. So the fact that the Iranian people have a memory, understand very well that the U.S. has never had their best intentions at heart, has always been there to see how they could profit from the Iranian oil, and of course the strategic place on the Straits of Hormuz that Iran has. So, Trump isn't the first one to threaten war. This has been going on, as I said, for many years. But I think we do have to say that using words like obliterate, that he would obliterate a country and its people, is something that every person has to take very seriously.
What do you think all this Iran stuff is about?
All this what?
Iran stuff.
Oh, I think it's just Trump being Trump is what it is, you know, and Bolton being Bolton, Pompeo being the stupid asshole that he is. I can't understand what they're planning to do at all.
He will take us into war to protect his own ego. That is not acceptable, never, and we will not stand for that.
You know, we're that much closer to actually a real nuclear war. And the fact that you have, like, you know, the whole Trump-Pence regime in power now, which is actually deconstructing American democracy as we know it and reconstructing it under American fascism. And when you know, the whole Iran stuff is, you know, you have the Iran stuff going on, you have children in cages, you have immigrants dying at the border, you have you know, the whole question of the earth dying. You have the question of abortion and women. You know, the list goes on as far as like what they are reconstructing society as, including Mike Pence, who literally is, you know, what we call a Christian fascist and would like to live in a theocracy, very, very similar to what you see in Handmaid's Tale. And when you see a president like Trump, who is totally illegitimate, and so is his entire regime, ask, if we have nuclear weapons, why can't we use them? Saying that 3 times, you're actually really looking at a situation where, 1, they are serious about the potential of using them, and 2, that this whole thing could totally spiral out of even their control. So this is a very serious and very dangerous situation that it is important for millions and millions of people to come into the streets and say we are not going one step further until they all leave. because this has to be stopped on so many fronts. And if it continues, all it does is they're able to consolidate an American fascist society, and it's going to be much harder to reverse if we don't stop it now. And it is going to require, hundreds of thousands. Like look what happened in Hong Kong a couple weeks ago. Perfect example. That kind of stuff needs to happen in the streets of America now, before we get to a situation where there is no turning back.
Thank you.
So this today is just an effort to sort of, gauge people's sentiment and to make sure that people are aware that there's actually organized opposition to any war in Iran, that we oppose sanctions. People like to think that sanctions are somehow benevolent. Sanctions kill. We remember well that in Iraq, 500,000 children died as a result of the fact that the parts for clean water purification were under sanction, that medicine was under sanction. And the same thing is now happening in Venezuela. People are dying as a result of the U.S. sanctions. And so sanctions aren't some alternative to war. They are another form of war. So we are opposed to the sanctions. We want them lifted. We want all this bellicose talk. We want all these ships and troops and removed. And we want the U.S. to stop its long-time war policy against Iran.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
How many years have you been standing out on the streets protesting wars?
Since 1968, with some breaks. But this particular corner we've been at for about 8 years. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5. And we're on a monthly schedule now, but in September we'll be back every week, 4 to 5 on Wednesday.
So do you think we may actually go to war with Iran?
But I sure hope not. It will be a disaster. It'll make Afghanistan and Iraq look like a cakewalk. Who knows with this stupid son of a bitch in the White House and his stupid... I just don't know. It'd be the worst thing that could happen, and yet we've seen it before. We've seen it with Bush, I don't know. Trump is so unpredictable, and he'll just go on whatever his bowels tell him. If he doesn't take a shit that morning, God only knows what'll happen.